Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. Please do not mind my kind of scraggly voice. You probably saw on Friday's video that my sick day with diabetes video that I did recover from the flu. Still kind of working on it a little bit. I just started feeling better a couple days ago. As you guys know, I film most of these videos about 5 days in advance from when they go up. So that is when I'm doing this. So if I'm a little coughy or a little raspy, please don't mind that. But like I said, you're going to take some time and you're going to recover. The flu is kind of an awful thing, but you've already got to hear all that in my previous video. So with that being said, we'll jump into today's video. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the things that I believe that need to be changed in the next generation of Dexcom, or things that the Dexcom G6 themselves that they can improve on. There are tons of things that could be improved on, whether or not it's for the G7 coming out in 2020, or whether or not they're going to make these improvements in this current generation is possible. But I'm going to list my things after having the Dexcom G6 for over 4 months now, giving you a better idea of what I think is okay and what I think needs to change. And most specifically, the changes, the things that are good, but these are the things that I wish they would improve on. So the first thing I have on the list is that it needs to be more accurate. Now you're thinking, Maddie, this is the first generation that allows no finger sticks. That should be perfect, right? Well, in my opinion, it's not really the case. It is a first generation of the Dexcom system that is no finger stick required, no calibrations, no treatment decisions needed with a meter unless you don't feel that your symptoms match your CGM at the current time. Now, I still use a few finger sticks in conjunction with the CGM. First of all, I think it's good to use multi-tools to manage a multifaceted disease. And number two, sometimes this thing isn't always perfect, and I want to be able to know what's going on in my blood. And I feel like I would have a nervous, anxious, anxiety attack just relying on one thing to look at my blood sugar levels. I want to be able to use multiple things. So I still finger stick about 2 to 4 times a day, but it definitely isn't as much as I used to. My ultimate goal with the Dexcom G6 was to reduce the amount of finger sticks I do, and that is definitely something I've done. I use it to treat highs, lows, overnights when accessing a meter is not easy or not convenient for me at the moment. But I still finger stick, you know, in the morning and at night at minimum, and sometimes at certain meals. But again, that's my opinion. That's what I do. And as far as the accuracy is concerned, it's very accurate with the actual number. But sometimes I notice if my blood sugar's headed up really quick, it'll have like the double arrow headed up or like a straight arrow headed up. And if somebody was going to make a treatment decision on that or make an insulin dosing on that, that theoretically would have to add 30 points. So say I was 140 with a straight arrow added up. Well, in the eyes of Dexcom, that means your blood sugar will probably be at 170 pretty soon. But for me, because my blood sugars don't really go up and down all that crazy, I don't have enough experience to deal with that. And when I see that, I start panicking, but then all of a sudden it'll flip to the stable mode, and I'm going, okay, so apparently my blood sugar headed up kind of quick and then it stopped. So it's kind of a timing issue with that, but I guess it's all the CGMs all have a 15 to 20 minute time lag, which is fine. But sometimes I feel like those arrows aren't exactly perfect, or it's kind of deceiving to maybe somebody who constantly relies on a CGM for a treatment decision. So I guess the best thing you can do is keep your blood sugar stable, and you're going to have the most benefit out of it. But I still think that those arrows could have a little bit more work on them, as far as not assuming that your blood sugar is headed straight up all the time. You know, I get a lot of the slight arrow down, slight arrow up too, but sometimes if it's headed up really fast, I see them like double arrows headed up, and then all of a sudden it'll whoosh, do a 360 on me, and oh, you're leveled off and now you're headed down like you had a really nasty spike. And it's kind of like crazy to me to think that it's catching that and I'm able to see accurate things, but at the same time, I don't know how exactly accurate those directional arrows are at some point. So that's what I need to mean by more accurate as far as that is concerned. The next thing they need to work on is their adhesive. Now, at the very beginning, I never had issues, but the past couple of sensors I've had, when I stuck it on, sometimes it peels up, or I notice that as I use it more and more, it almost like the adhesive kind of starts bunching up on top of the sensor. I always put a tape on, like an Expression Med tape, an overpatch, medical tape, etc., over mine right away, just because I restart my sensors and I get 20 days use out of them. But I'm even noticing if I just wear just the regular adhesive for like a day or two, that is already peeling up by like day 1.5. They need to re-improve that adhesive or do something to that adhesive to make it stick more. Now I know some of you want to use skin tack and all that extra stuff, but to me that just makes the mess more sticky. I'm already going to have a little bit of a sticky mess coming from the tape, and I don't want to add more and more stickiness on my skin. And I'm not a fan of super sticky on the skin, but I want the adhesive to stick and not feel sticky, if that makes sense. I don't need the thing falling off of me. I pay enough money for mine. I hope to provide you guys with an update soon, but I do buy mine from Costco, and they are fairly expensive for the sensors, but the actual transmitters are cheap. But anyways, the adhesive needs to be more sticky. The third thing they need to improve on is they need to make it a little bit more slimmer. Now, the transmitter itself is pretty slim, and the actual profile, the actual sensor is fairly slim, although sometimes I do find it sticks out just enough that it gets caught on pants if I wear it on my thigh, or it gets caught on my bra strap if I wear it on my arm. It just kind of like gets there, and I feel like if it gets hooked on something, it's going to rip off. So anything they could do to make that profile a little more slimmer would be great, but I know they have to be able to reduce the battery size and still have the power, have the power within the battery to do so. So maybe just to be a little bit more slimmer. And to go on top of that, there's a little bit of a texture on the side of the actual sensor. You can't really see it on here, and I'm wearing it on my thigh right now, and it wouldn't be the most appropriate place to show you guys where that is. But any of you that use the G6 know that on the sensor there's like a little bit of a gripping area, and that's for you to grip on to when you actually put the transmitter and clip it in at the initial insertion time. And that kind of grip to me isn't really worth anything, because the grip just kind of catches on the fabric or the material of where you might have a possible site and could rip it off. So I feel like they need to be more smooth in like the edges of the sensor that stick up, if that makes sense. I don't really like the textured thing. So if they could maybe improve on that, that would be great. The next thing they need to do is add more followers to the Share app. Now this doesn't really apply to me, seeing as though I only have one parent and a third-party app called Sugarmate. See my Dexcom data, and that kind of gets to interpret it that way. But for those of you that need more followers, or for young children that have multiple people managing their type 1 diabetes, there needs to be more room for improvement. Or for me, like I said, in the future I might have a significant other do that, or somebody you are committed to that is interested in taking care of you or helping you. Not really take care of you, but make you more accountable for your blood sugars and make sure that you're not going dangerously high or dangerously low, if that makes sense. They need to add more followers. Now, do keep in mind, a lot of the things I'm saying, I'm thinking Dexcom will eventually be adding. But I'm just pointing these out as to my first time using a CGM, having the Dexcom G6, which is the latest and greatest generation of Dexcom right now. And maybe giving any of you a heads up for those of you who are interested in getting the G6, or have read rumors about the G7, or have an older model and are just curious to know what I think needs to be better. So anyways, we'll continue on. The next thing is obviously, which most of you would say too, is a shorter warm-up period. For those of you that don't know, that don't use a Dexcom, we have to do a 2-hour warm-up after insertion. It takes the sensor 2 hours to fully warm up and start giving you blood glucose readings. To me, that is a little bit too long, knowing that a competitor, the Freestyle Libre, takes about an hour now. I know the Freestyle Libre, I believe, used to take like, what, 12 hours? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the Freestyle Libre, but I think it used to be a lot longer. But I think now that they could match that, they could at least do an hour, get that warm-up time down to an hour and still have just as much accuracy. And to go along with that shorter warm-up time, they need to have longer wear time. Now, 10 days is pretty good as far as considering to have no finger sticks, but I think they could shoot for 15, seeing as though, again, their competitor, the Freestyle Libre, can do 14 days. If they could shoot for 15 or 20 days, that would be cool. And I think maybe eventually we'll get to the point where we can wear it for a month or even 3 months and have it to the point where you could wear it and have great accuracies. I know it's going to get better and better as we go, but that's something that they can definitely work on. The next thing is a huge one for me, is the battery, the transmitter battery life. When I did talk to a Dexcom representative, because I was originally going to buy my Dexcom supplies outright because my insurance does not cover my CGM. And he had told me that the Dexcom transmitter at their price was $237, which is cheaper than like the $400 and some odd transmitter for a G4 or a G5. And that's because the battery is lower quality. At least from what I've understood and read. When I went to reset my transmitter, when I've seen from people that do the G5 that they get a little bit longer wear than maybe 3 months. They may get 4 or 5 months. I only got 4 months before the resistance and the voltage really took a plummet. So they definitely need to work on making the transmitter battery longer lasting, while at the same time being able to keep the battery small. And I think that's maybe something that they gave up to have that slimmer profile, was to reduce the capacity or the charge in the actual battery. So something that they can work on for the future, maybe have a rechargeable battery, or maybe have a battery that you can replace, kind of like people that have the Omnipod PEM, you have to change it out with lithium batteries. Maybe that's something that we could do. But then again, that would be a lot of waste and a lot of other things too. The next thing I think they need to work on a little bit is getting everything up to date with the iOS and the Android operating systems for the Clarity app and the Dexcom G6 app. Sometimes when I open the apps, they crash. They'll open and crash, and it'll glitch back to my home screen. And some days I cannot get access to Clarity reports because it'll say that you've logged out or logged in, and even though I never actually did, it's almost like there's a little bit of a system glitch, and they need to work on that a little bit more. But that's pretty minor as far as I'm concerned. But that's just something I wanted to add on my list. The next thing is the colors on the actual app. They're kind of muted. They're not really enticing to me. When you actually do have a low blood sugar or a high blood sugar, the yellow and the red correlating to those colors. Yellow correlates to a high blood glucose, and low correlates to a low blood glucose, or red correlates to a low blood glucose. They're pretty bright, and the gray is just like a plain old gray, nothing fancy schmancy. On the actual part where you see it on the screen, the yellow and the red colors are real faded and muted, and it doesn't really look attractive to me. It just doesn't stand out to me as much, and to me, I think that's something that's minor, but that could be improved on. I know some people have talked about it, that the G5 app had the yellow and the red actual shading behind the actual graph was a lot brighter and easier to see, and a little more catching to the eye, a little more interesting than the one that the G6 has. So something that they could also work on. The next thing I have here has to do with the actual receiver. Now my blood sugar went down. It was in the 80s. Now it's in the it's 65. I'm considered low right now, but I did eat a glucose tablet. Did have some popcorn, so that hopefully should bring it up fairly soon. But they need to work on the receiver. To me, the screen is not sensitive enough, or it's too sensitive when it needs to be, especially when you go to unlock it. To me, it's annoying to tap it, and sometimes, see, it's not very sensitive when it needs to be. And then when I need it to be not so sensitive, it'll automatically start jumping to things. And I don't want to power down my receiver. It's just see that? It's it won't respond when it needs to. Or it'll respond way too well. So it's something they need to work on in the actual touchscreen of the receiver. The receiver itself is nice. It's compact. Obviously, the numbers and stuff are going to be pretty small. But, I mean, that's to be expected. They want to keep this thing as small as possible. So I'm not complaining about that. But I think they need to work on the sensitivity and how it responds to people's actual fingers and thumbs and whatever the case may be. And the final thing I'm going to talk about, which probably is talked about a lot with the G6, is we need a less bulky and less wasteful applicator. This is a brand new sensor, but for those of you that do not have the G6 or have not had the G6 in your hand, this is what it looks like. It is an auto applicator. At the push of a button, the needle goes in, the sensor is applied, and you're set to go. This orange thing is a safety tab, but as you can see, it is a fairly bulky little thing. It sits in my hand. But when you're done, you throw this whole thing away. And to me, that's wasteful. I feel like it's bulky to store or travel with. And I think that's something they need to really work on. And especially since the fact that we're throwing these in the garbage, we're creating more waste for the environment that really isn't necessary. They need to have a recycling program for these. And there also needs to be a way for us to be able to remove the actual needle fairly easily that goes inside our body. Because I feel like when I dispose of it, thank goodness that nobody can really touch it, but if somebody were to have access to that little needle that went in and out of my body, that is considered a biohazard. Any actual sharp that penetrated the skin, this is a biohazard. That needle goes in and retracts back, but that's not the point. This is a biohazard, and that part needs to be removed, and the rest should be able to be recycled and not thrown away instead of being thrown in a landfill. That's something they definitely need to work on. And that's something that definitely needs to be addressed, because to me, we're living in a world where we're creating more and more waste, more and more problems with that kind of stuff. So we need to work on that aspect a little bit more. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Once we hit 100 subscribers, I will be sharing my diabetes diagnosis story. And until next week for more videos, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.